even though we just finished up the 2024 election and then we're hit with local elections in April, believe it or not, the election cycle continues. And big ticket item is the U.S. Senate seat that Senator Dick Durbin is going to vacate next term as he doesn't seek re-election. He's been in Congress for years, but now we're going to have the ability to not just have a primary for the Democrats and the Republicans, but also in November 2026 for the midterm elections, Illinois will be able to pick a new U.S. Senator. I'm Greg Bishop. This is Illinois in Focus Daily. Wake up with us each morning and stay plugged in with what's going on. Joining me now is Dr. Denise Long. She is Dr. Pamela Denise Long, a U.S. Senate candidate for the Republican Party. Denise, thanks for taking time with us. And let's start by giving an introduction to those who don't know who you are. Good morning. Oh, 1 second. I apologize. Start over. I got to unmute you. You're good to go.
Okay. Thanks, Greg. I appreciate the opportunity to talk with you. My name is Dr. Pamela Denise Long. I go by Denise, but I am coming out of Madison County, Edwardsville in particular. I am a mom. I'm a pet mom, and also have a grand puppy that I babysit when I can. I've started my career as a healthcare professional, as an occupational therapist, working in schools, working with people really across the lifespan. I've always been aware of politics and its ability to shape life in a positive or a negative way. I've been very disappointed in how Democrats have led both at the national level and the state level. So I am running for U.S. Senate because as a columnist for Newsweek and someone who's been talking about politics in terms of breaking down the policy and what people could be doing to serve all Americans well. With this opportunity, with Dick Durbin retiring, as well as just life circumstances, I can finally throw my hat in the ring to become the type of representative that I've been asking others to be. So I'm not new to politics. I've just been writing about it, analyzing it, and as an organizational development consultant, which is what my doctorate is in, I'm willing to bring and able to bring some real world problem solving to DC.
Well, let's talk about some of the issues that are fresh in the news over the weekend and even last week. There have been protests on the streets of Chicago against immigration customs enforcement details going after non-citizens in the country illegally. And over in LA over the weekend, things turned violent. Protesters throwing bricks and rocks and all kinds of things at local and state California police. President Donald Trump getting the National Guard in there. They're showing up. I mean, a headline at thecentersquare.com on our national page, immigration policy battle plays out on both coasts. Where do we stand on this in your thoughts? Is President Trump handling this correctly, getting the National Guard in there to help keep the peace while ICE conducts these enforcement details? Or should protesters be concerned about what they say is a lack of due process in all of this?
Yeah, so we're at a very interesting time in our nation where we're seeing the consequences of 2 generations of really lax border security, really lax enforcement and tolerance for illegal immigration coming to a head. I am really pleased that the president and Tom Homan, as well as FBI Director Kash Patel, have really made it clear that we will have law and order and accountability in our nation when it comes to immigration. The Biden administration sued states when border states like Texas tried to enforce the border since the federal government at that time was not. And the SCOTUS decided and made it very clear that border enforcement is a federal obligation. So for states anywhere in the United States, local places included, to resist and obstruct the federal government's ability to enforce our borders, there should be consequences for that. The president is absolutely right to send in the National Guard if states like California and or Illinois are so committed to their sanctuary status and unequal protections that they will allow people to fly foreign flags in our nation while literally pointing strobe lights into the eyes of ICE agents. The federal government has to take a stand to get law and order and let people know that you can fly your foreign flag in your homeland, but you cannot come here and be unlawful and try to harm our law enforcement agents.
We're talking with Denise Long. She is a candidate for the Republican primary heading into the March primary next year. It's going to be an interesting race. A lot of names are already tossing their hats into the ring for the U.S. Senate seat opened up by Dick Durbin. We'll talk a little bit about what you think separates you from any other potential Republican or Democrat candidates that'll be there. But to the immigration issue, the state of Illinois has the Trust Act and the Way Forward Act. These are measures that ultimately say state and local police can't cooperate with federal immigration authorities. So how should that policy change, and how do you get that policy changed in Illinois?
Yeah, so one of the things that I've been advocating for is an actual application of the laws that are already on the books when it comes to encouraging a person to break federal law. Entering the United States without our consent is actually a crime, although being in the United States in and of itself is a civil offense. But for elected officials to violate their constitutional duty to implement the laws of Congress, there need to be consequences for them. The idea that we have elected officials who are willing to go to a foreign country for a non-citizen and say that they're not coming back to the United States until that, the Maryland father, as they say, is released. I think it just shows you how far afield we've gotten in our sense of inclusion and in our sense of, being a good person. I think that from federal, state, and local level, the FBI as well as the Department of Justice really does need to apply laws that address the absolute obstruction of federal implementation of immigration laws.
Finally, here with the issue of immigration, Governor Pritzker is going to be addressing a House committee this week to take questions from U.S. House members about the state's sanctuary policies. He says he's there just to let them understand their perspective, and I think he's probably going to make that fine line between a civil detention order and a criminal detention order. Should that be the line that they draw here when it comes to sanctuary policies?
Well, I don't think sanctuary policy should exist. The very thought that we create a whole space in the United States where federal law is sort of ignored, that we require law enforcement agents to be antagonistic with the federal government. I think there's clearly a difference between the civil and criminal penalties. However, we cannot have whole spaces, be they cities like Chicago or states that try to impose their liberal will on locales. We can't have spaces like that in the United States. There's nothing inherently inhumane by having immigration laws. And a matter of fact, we don't have a nation. We don't have national security without not just the laws, but actual enforcement of those laws.
Talking with Denise Long, a Republican vying for the nomination for U.S. Senate in 2026. The big, beautiful bill. We've got a lot of conversation about that, obviously, past the U.S. House. Wild dust up between President Donald Trump and Elon Musk about this as well over the weekend. Where do you stand on the so-called big, beautiful bill?
Yeah, the one triple B. I think that it was ambitious. I think that I appreciate many of the things that are included there, including, the opportunity for farmers to have a more economic base, for them to reallocate land more adaptively. I can appreciate the emphasis on, bioenergy. Illinois is the second largest producer of corn. I can appreciate the work requirements for welfare and subsidies, because we have 20 million, at least 20 million Americans who are not participating in the labor force and not looking for a job, right? So we need to pull those people into the market, especially if we're talking about decreasing immigration. So one of the things I've advocated for and will advocate for in the U.S. Senate is a native-born talent management pipeline and a plan to pull Americans into the workforce to take care of our domestic needs, economic needs now, and our labor needs in the future. I do have, I know I've seen several people have concerns that the DOGE efficiencies have not been codified into the bill. That's really been part of the dust up. And I really think there are some ways that we need to look at how do we, from a procedural perspective, from an implementation guidance perspective, codify some of what Elon and his team found. I was pleased also to see that the federal government was willing to increase the salt tax cap that people could write off. Now the 40,000 might be a bit high, but I think given what the Illinois just passed in terms of its budget, there needs to be ways where we can force some of these states to operate more efficiently. Certainly, I hope we get a Republican governor here that I can work with and have the federal government, like with Doge, help them in terms of efficiencies and effectiveness and how they function as well.
All right, Dr. Pamela Denise Long, tell people how they can find more about you and what you think separates you from some names we've already heard tossed in, especially on the Democratic side, including Lieutenant Governor Juliana Stratton. So, yeah, lay it out there for us.
Yeah, I mean, Stratton's a handpicked successor of J.B. Pritzker. And so if she makes it to the U.S. Senate, I can guarantee you that she'll be far more liberal than even Dick Durbin, if you can imagine that. These folks think that the United States shouldn't have any borders. We are not a country without borders, and we cannot have homeland security without it, not to mention transing children, as if 2-year-olds are able to identify that they want to be a girl or a boy. What separates me from the rest is that I bring a broad array of problem solving to the U.S. Senate. I've been analyzing these issues, advocating with candidates, including conversations with the Trump campaign for this 2024 election. I am very accustomed to fighting, and I'm also accustomed to building bridges with those who are interested in having real viewpoint diversity and finding the best policy that is available. So I would invite people to take a look at my website, which is Long4Senate2026.com. That's LONGFOR Senate 2026.com. You can also Google Long for Senate. You can find us on LinkedIn, on X, as well as Instagram. We'd love to hear from you. Let me know that what is important to you and get involved with the campaign so we can bring some common sense to DC and some strong representation from Illinois.
Well, Denise, thank you so much for taking time with us today. And I imagine we'll be talking again in the near future as things continue. Like I said, I mean, we just got done with a couple of different elections, and now we're already talking about the 2026 election. So appreciate you taking the time this morning to join us live here, and we'll definitely talk again in the near future.
Thanks so much, Greg. Have a good day.
It is Illinois in Focus Daily. I'm Greg Bishop. Like, subscribe, hit that notification bell, and wake up with us each and every weekday morning to stay plugged in with what's going on in the land of Lincoln.